Welcome to Adventurin 101. I'm Uncle Cletus. I fought and killed damn near everything across the 9 realms, and it's my job to keep you alive. Today, we are talking about goblins.
Does Miss Tilly have yet another monster infestation? If she does, that'd be really strange. It'd be like she was breeding the monsters herself.
What a preposterous notion. Miss Tilly is a wonderful lady and a pillar of our community. But she is a bit more monster prone than everyone else.
I like Miss Tilly. Her pastelitos were a revelation.
They are, aren't they? Her pastelitos are flaky and delicious. Ah, delicious. But no, we're talking about goblins today because I gotta start following the curriculum.
There's a curriculum?
Yes, there's a curriculum, and now I have to stick really closely to it. And apparently, I can't be sending y'all on no quests anymore for personal reasons, because apparently, Miss Tilly has to pay for our services and put in official requests.
Whatever, man.
So anyway, now we're talking about goblins. What do y'all know about goblins?
You know, in the old days, goblins weren't known as goblins. They were known as kobolds.
Correct. Kobolds did used to be the catch-all term for kobolds, goblins, pixies, and other household spirits. But we have long since given them all proper names.
But there are a few types of goblinoids, right?
That's correct. There are a handful of creatures known as goblinoids, including hobgoblins, bugbears, goblins, and verdant. But today we're just talking about goblins.
My granny used to say that goblins were lazy, undisciplined, and malicious ex-fairies that would come take us away for their torturous games if we didn't behave.
Your granny really said that to you?
That woman suffered no fools, especially in her bakery. Ah, she was the best, Granny.
You know, my grandmother's once said something very similar when I refused to wear the family jacket. The family jacket. We only had one. We were so poor. Then how did you afford that dark vision scroll you bought me? Anyway, back to the goblins. Do go on, Uncle Cletus.
Now, both of your grannies are mostly right, but goblins don't steal children any more than they steal livestock. Though honestly, neither of them has a great time after a goblin's taken them. Which is why I can't necessarily disagree with an old friend of mine who believes that the only good goblin is a dead goblin. Now, goblins are small, black-hearted, selfish little bastards that are the Feywild's embodiment of chaos, recklessness, and ruin.
Sounds like my stepmother.
Plenty of stepmothers would have made great goblins in another life, but though they share a lot of similar traits, I've never met an evil stepmother who would really enjoy Goblin Society.
What kind of society could even be had by a group of black-hearted, selfish humanoids? It probably resembles Kobold Society, with a few minor differences.
Incorrect. Kobolds believe that the pack together is strong, and as a result, they form tight community bonds to help each other out. Goblins, on the other hand, are lazy, undisciplined, and they only look out for themselves. Which means that the second a goblin gets any sort of power over its fellow goblin, it will almost instantly abuse it.
Does that mean their society is based on survival of the
fittest? More like survival of the cruelest. Goblins follow the smartest, strongest, and nastiest among them, especially if that leader has accomplished some truly wild feats.
What do you mean?
Well, a goblin leader might be someone who successfully raided a nearby village, or a goblin leader might be someone that made something explode in an amusing way. Of course, I once knew a goblin leader that had successfully stolen an owlbear cub, and it was using it in a game it called chicken chasing to amuse its tribe.
Just stealing an owlbear cub is crazy enough. I can't even imagine how they kept it in line.
Now, due to the goblin's nature, a goblin leader doesn't remain the goblin leader for very long.
So if we ever have to work for a goblin, we should get paid in advance?
Absolutely. Goblins are motivated by greed and malice. So the second they think they can overthrow their boss, they are gonna try. But don't worry, you're probably never gonna work for a goblin because any significantly large goblin tribe that might want to hire you is probably gonna be run by somebody that's stronger than a goblin, like a hobgoblin, a bugbear, or some crazy, mentally unstable, but strong humanoid.
But don't goblins have kings and queens? I remember Granny telling me about those.
What the goblins call kings and queens is honestly nothing more than an overinflated ego attached to a regular goblin boss. Because yeah, a goblin boss could rule 3 or 4 different tribes of goblins, but at any given moment, that goblin boss can be kicked off its throne by any regular hobgoblin.
Do all goblin tribes work the same way across the realm, like how Kobold Society is nearly identical anywhere you go?
By the gods, no. Every goblin tribe is a slave to its current leader's whims. For example, I knew some tropical goblins down south that were really obsessed with keeping pineapples on the end of their clubs and sticks. And when we asked about the importance of that, they said they didn't really know, but just that it was super important that they keep the pineapple on there. So while every goblin tribe is unique, there are some common threads that run throughout all of them.
How odd. So what traits are common between the goblin tribes?
Now, for some reason, all goblin tribes have these two things in common. The first is the choice of pet, and the second, their choice in battle mounts. Now, for pets, goblins always keep rats as pets. And as best we can figure, it's because rats are also nocturnal, just like goblins. But for mounts, well, when a goblin tribe gets strong enough, they will always go and hunt down wolves and wargs to tame and use as mounts in combat.
So goblins like rats, they use wolves and wargs as mounts, and they change leadership more often than I change my spells. What's next? Are you gonna tell me they worship the concept of fire?
Actually, you're not too far off.
What?
Well, they serve a deity known as Old Fiery Eyes, also known as the chief deity of the goblinoids, also known as Maglubiot.
Who is Maglubiot? And how did he get the name Fiery Eyes?
Well, Maglubiot, also known as the Battle Lord, the High Chieftain, the Conquering God, and the Lord of Depths and Darkness, got his name as Old Fiery Eyes because he used to snap his fingers and then set his eyes aflame.
What a stupid spell.
Careful, boy, because if he looked at you while his eyes were glowing, you'd catch on fire.
What spell is that again? Great, more fire spells.
I want to learn to set people on fire with my eyeballs too.
Of course you do. Now hush. Now Maglubiot earned his name as the Conquering God because he took over a bunch of deities and their races, and then he shoved them all into one army that he uses to conquer as much as he possibly can.
How did they come to serve him? Were they conquered too?
Kind of. See, a long time ago in a galaxy far away, Maglubiot witnessed the destructive power of the goblinoids, and so he relocated a bunch of them from their home in the Feywild to his home in the Outer Realms. Now since then, hordes of these goblins have flourished, and some of them have made their way back to our home on the material plane.
So if they were conquered and stolen, do they even want to serve Maglubiot?
Well, some of them do and some of them don't. But most goblins believe that if they die in battle, they have the dreaded privilege of joining Maglubiot's army on the plane of Acheron.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Now, regardless of whether they want to serve or not, if a goblinoid has ties to the ones that were taken by Maglubiot, that goblin will be inherently self-serving as well as legendarily treacherous. And unless they make some deal with another god, when they die, they will return to Maglubiot's army.
So what kind of goblins did Maglubiot steal from the Feywild to take to his Outer Realms?
Don't worry about the kind of goblins that got taken. Worry about the kinds of goblins that came back.
What do you mean kinds? I thought there was only a single kind of goblin.
Well, there are 4 kinds of goblins that have made their way back to the material plane. You got your goblin minion, your goblin warrior, your goblin boss, and your goblin hexer.
Can we assume you listed the types from weakest to strongest?
Correct. Goblin minions make up the vast majority of all goblins, and they're the reason why goblins have a reputation as lazy and undisciplined. Because the goblin minions love getting involved with any kind of disruptive scheme, like burning down a village or blowing something up. But the second there's any real danger or work to be done, they get the hell out of there.
So are goblin warriors less lazy?
Absolutely. At least by goblin standards, goblin warriors are significantly more disciplined on account of them being in Maglubiot's army. And because they were in the army, they also tend to have martial training with scimitars, shields, and short bows.
So if a goblin king or queen is just a goblin boss with an overinflated ego, why is a goblin hexer ranked above them?
Well, let me ask you this. Is it better to be on the throne or the power behind the throne?
On the throne, right? I mean, it is good to be king.
Yeah, my granny ruled our clan with an iron oven mitt. We all feared and respected her.
Any fool can wear a crown and call himself a king, but to influence that king and have him do your bidding, that's real power.
And that is why goblin hexers rank above a goblin boss. Because the goblin bosses last about as long as virginity does in a whorehouse. powerhouse. But the Goblin Hexer is smart, and he uses his brain to position himself as seemingly subservient to the new boss. But in reality, the Hexer's just manipulating him.
So then what's the point of the Goblin boss?
A Goblin boss is nuttier than a squirrel turd, and meaner than my Aunt Jean, and they became the boss by a combination of luck, cowardice, and callousness to their fellow goblins, and they maintain that position as boss at the expense of all their followers.
So they're manipulators as well.
Some bosses manipulate while other bosses strong arm, but don't worry about the Goblin bosses. They're not the real threat. The Goblin Hexers are the real threat. See, Hexers are known for flashy and disruptive magic. They're honestly kind of the theater kids of the Goblin clans, and because they're the theater kids, they dress very theatrically.
What do you mean?
That's my line.
Well, Goblin Hexers like to think of themselves as archmages, so they dress up wearing these big flowy robes and giant pointy wizard hats, and they carry around truly ridiculous staves. But because they're goblins and they're over-exaggerating all these accoutrements, they're no longer able to nimbly escape their enemies. So let's talk about goblin combat tactics. Quick, what are 3 ways goblins fight?
With ambushes. With large raids.
Dirty.
No, Akara. Well, actually, you're not entirely wrong.
Then why did you hit me?
Because I haven't thrown a beanbag at somebody this whole lesson. Now, Roan and Nox are correct. Goblins use very similar tactics during ambushes and raids, but their tactics change significantly when they're defending their lairs.
Why are their tactics different in their lairs?
Well, it has to do with how they design their lairs. For example, you remember how kobolds have interconnected warrens filled with traps, right?
Yes, I can still smell the pot of green slime.
Well, goblin lairs have narrow tunnels with a bunch of bolt holes throughout that medium-sized creatures can't squeeze into.
Where do the bolt holes lead to?
They tend to backtrack, and honestly, they kind of look like this.
So what's the point of that U-shaped section there?
Well, like kobold warrens, goblin tunnels don't have light in them, and goblins are incredible at stealth, so what they like to do is hide in the darkness of their tunnel, and then when you least expect it, they jump out and stab you, and then because they can nimbly escape, they disengage as a bonus action and bolt into one of them holes.
So they end up behind us to stab us again, and then they rinse and repeat.
I'm about the size of a goblin. I could follow them into their bolt holes.
That's not a good idea, Frog, because once you've squeezed in there, you're in pretty tight quarters, and that's going to make it very difficult to swing any kind of weapon.
Can we use light in goblin tunnels?
Yes, and you probably should. That way you can easily see where the goblins are going to jump out and stab you from. Now, once you've made it deep into a goblin lair, you'll typically find where the goblin boss has set up his throne, and that throne will always be surrounded by a bunch of goblin warriors.
Like a king's guard?
No, the goblin boss considers those warriors to be a part of his personal meat shield.
So exactly like a king's guard then.
I mean, maybe. Kings usually care about their knights, though. On the other hand, a goblin boss will absolutely pull one of his warriors in to take an attack for him, which is extra cruel because the goblin boss usually has the best armor.
I can see why they try to kill their leader now. A good leader protects his people, and in return they get the best stuff. But when the leader breaks that contract, they tend to get killed.
Speaking of protection, do goblins use traps like kobolds do?
No, goblins are terrible trap makers. They're honestly too lazy to do anything more than rig a simple alarm.
So the traps are more to let them know that we're coming so that they can get into position?
Precisely. Now, deep within a goblin's lair, you'll encounter the Goblin Hexer. And Goblin Hexers, despite their flashy and theatrical disposition, they don't actually use damage and evocation spells. Instead, they like to use illusions and conjuration spells to support their allies during battle. For example, they might cast the spell Grease over an area to make it difficult terrain for invaders, or they'll summon illusions to confuse and hinder their enemies. But most importantly, a Goblin Hexer will never be within 5 feet of a boss during a fight.
Why not?
Boy, didn't I just tell you that a goblin boss will pull one of his allies in to take a hit for him? A goblin hexer's smarter than that. He knows better than to be within reach.
So does the hexer only cast illusion or support spells?
No, they figured out some kind of psychic hex spell that only they can do, hence the name Hexer. It's kind of like a weak mind spike spell. Now, when you're traveling down a road through a forest and you come across a broken down cart in the middle of the road and no one else is around, what is the first thing you should do?
Check the surrounding trees for signs of an ambush.
Correct. But do you check the tree tops or tree bottoms?
Both.
Wrong. You check behind the trees. How else are you gonna know they're coming for you?
But what's behind the trees? Goblins. Honestly, Roan, sometimes you concern me.
Now, goblin ambushes always follow the same pattern. You got even number of goblins surrounding the ambush point, trying to hide behind something with at least 3/4 cover.
You can't really hide in anything less than that.
Now, when an unsuspecting victim goes to inspect the ambush point, the goblins start loosing arrows at him. And after the goblin has loosed an arrow, it reveals its position. So they will then move immediately to another location and attempt to hide.
Hiding as a bonus action is pretty useful, but fighting stealth archers is brutal.
Not really. You just have to get in close enough that they can't shoot you.
Now, goblin warriors always try to stay at least 40 feet away from whatever they're ambushing. So if you get closer to them and attempt to close that gap, you can expect them to bolt.
But didn't you also say that goblins used scimitars? If that's true, why wouldn't they engage in combat when threatened?
Now, you gotta understand that goblins are as smart as the average person, but they're also pretty weak. So goblins won't want to get in close and personal if they have the option to pick you off from a distance. Now, if you're especially unlucky that day, those goblins will have wolf and warg mounts with them, and they'll use those mounts to run away further and shoot arrows for longer.
So their tactic is to shoot and then run away hoping that you'll chase them?
Correct. The point of a goblin ambush is not to fight and kill everyone in some kind of final stand. Instead, they want to draw you away so they can pick you off one by one.
Is it only goblin warriors who do ambushes?
9 times out of 10, yes. Cause you'll rarely see a goblin boss or a goblin hexer outside their lairs. And the goblin minions are far too undisciplined and untrained to be of any use out in the field. But that all changes during a goblin raid.
A raid brings them all out, huh?
Precisely. A goblin raid is the perfect opportunity for chaos and destruction. Only the youngest goblins, the ones that are less than 8 years old, are kept home.
That seems so young. I mean, I was barely tying my shoes at 8 years old. You can barely tie your shoes now. Hey, I'm perfectly capable of tying my shoes now. I just prefer slip-ons.
Do raids follow the same playbook as ambushes?
Correct. Now, goblins will use the same hit and run tactics with their mounts during raids that they do during ambushes. But just like how in chess the pawns go first, goblin bosses will send hordes of minions in to weaken villagers and cause a bunch of random chaos, long before the boss and his warriors enter the fray.
When you really break it down, it seems like goblins just use hit and run tactics in general, regardless of location.
That's right, Nox. Now, when you're fighting goblins, you need to find a way to lock down their movement so that they cannot nimbly escape.
So hold person, web, or
Wall of fire?
Precisely. If you can prevent them from running away, you've taken out half their toolkit.
So what's the other half?
Remember what I said about goblins being self-centered and malicious? Well, if you find yourself losing to goblins, you might be able to trick them by making yourself seem weak and helpless.
Hey, old man, give me everything.
Call an ambulance! Call an ambulance! But not for me!
And if you fake a surrender, the goblins will more than likely stop and celebrate that they've gotten the upper hand.
And as they're reveling in their twisted joy, you strike.
Now you're getting it.
Isn't that kind of like a war crime?
Boy, they are trying to torture you for their enjoyment. So if you can trick them and stay alive, you best do whatever underhanded thing you can do to come home at the end of the day. After all, it's my job to keep you alive, not the monsters. Would you look at the time? I've just been rambling on. Now, that's all we've got for today's lesson. Next time, we're gonna talk about dungeon hazards. Now, get out.
Hey y'all, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, consider liking, subscribing, sending it to your friend, sharing it on the internet, I don't know, but I appreciate you for watching it. Listen, these videos take a long time to make, so if you have a monster that you want to see covered, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll get to it at some point in the future. Anyways guys, I'm Sir Pinkbeard, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.